So yesterday we finished uh, the day by discussing the Mishnah had a stira. The Mishnah at the beginning says if you're in a chutzner and someone's making noise, you're not allowed to complain. I'm sorry. At the beginning it says if someone's making noise, you're allowed to complain. And at the end it says you cannot complain from the noise of tanoikus. So the Gemara answered, Rava answered that the type of noise that you're not allowed to complain from is the noise of tanoikus shel beis rabban. Zok Rashi, the very top Rashi, Seifa also on the tanoikus shel beis rabban, yaf agav to koil haba machmas acherim leimotzi mechuy. Even though this is a koil that's coming because of people who are coming to visit, and that normally you could protest, you could object to. Here you cannot, because there's something special about tanoikus shel beis rabban. Why? Because umitakonas Yeshua ben Gamlo be'elach. This is post Yeshua ben Gamlo. Zok Rashi, who is Yeshua ben Gamlo? Echad min hakahanim hagadolim she'amdu b'vayis sheni. He was a kohen gadol who was in the bayish. The Amri B'Yavamas, and Tosfos tells us that in the days of the bayish sheni there was a lot of corruption, and not necessarily was the best man for the job picked to be the kohen gadol. In the case of Yeshua ben Gamlo, who was a very special man, he became kohen gadol also only because Marta Baspaitos paid off Yanai HaMelech. Zok Rashi, Lemaisa, he was a tzaddik gomer, as we're going to see here, but nevertheless, he wasn't the best out there. So even though he was someone who was very royal to be a kohen gadol, but there might have been others who are more royal than him. It's like we say all men are created equal, but some men are more equal than others. So Zok to Gemara, Amarav Yehuda, Amarav, Bram Zocher Oisei Ish Latoiv. This person is Zocher Latoiv. Remember him because of the wonderful takanas he made in Klal Yisrael. Who is this person? Yeshua ben Gamlo Shemot. He was the one who set up formal educational apparatuses. He set it up. The schooling system that we have today, he was the one who planted those seeds. Why? Shalmolehu, if it wasn't for him, Nishtakach Torah Yisrael. Torah would have been forgotten from Klal Yisrael. Shabbatchila, it used to be, Mishiesh Le'av, if a child has a father that's capable, Melamdei Torah, his father would teach him Torah. But Misha Le'av, someone who didn't have a child, Le'hayalam Torah, he would never learn Torah. In other words, it was each man for himself, and it was perceived that there's no communal responsibility to teach Torah. The mitzvah is directly from Av Lubnoi. Where did they get that from? Ma'idrosh. Zok to Gemara, it says, we say this in Prishma, and they darshaned it, you have to teach your son. It's a private and personal responsibility. So come to Chois, if someone didn't have a father, or the father wasn't in that position to be able to teach his son, there was no one to teach this child. So what did he do? The first thing that happened was, he says, Skinu, Sheyumoshivin Malamda Tanoikas Yerushalayim. They set a system up. This was before Yeshua ben Gamlo's days. They set a system up that in Yerushalayim only there was a communal school. So Sheyumoshivin, we're going to see, means that the community paid for it. It became a job of work for the public. I don't know if you remember, we're going to have a little reminder of it later today, but we had a Gemara that discussed people that are paid for by the community, and therefore they're in a situation of Olavimoy. You remember, I don't remember who it was with, but someone told his Rebbe, maybe if I borrow anything from you, I'll be potter, because it's always Olavimoy, because you, as my Rebbe, are always working for me. And the Rebbe got offended. The Rebbe said, maybe you're always working for me. And then there was a whole discussion of who has the right to pick what they're going to learn. So that Gemara was discussing, it was also discussing public servants. And public servants might, at least while they're doing work, are always considered Balav Imoi if you borrow something from them. So one of the people on the list in that Gemara was the Rebbe, were the Rebbeim, because they're also paid for by the city. It's a communal need. But at first, they only had this in Yerushalayim. Why did they feel that Yerushalayim was the place to have chinuch? Ma'idrosh, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, because they thought that the Torah comes from Tzion. Why should the Torah dafka be in Yerushalayim? Maybe to the contrary. Maybe find a place where no one's learning, and that's a good place to establish moisters of chinuch. Zok Tosfos, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, l'fi she'yaroi kedusha gedola. It's a good, very good place. It's a very good environment to influence children, because they see kedusha all around them. They see people who are Isaac and Avodah all day, such as the Kohanim. So right away, Tosfos makes it quite clear that chinuch isn't merely teaching them Torah; it's also infusing in them Yir Shemayim and Avodas Hashem. Hididashina b'sefri mantilment lira. Gadol Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni is a gewaltige mitzvah. Why? Shemaybe the Talmud, it causes people to learn Torah. How is that? Because in order to liquidate your Ma'aser Sheni, you have to go up to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim Yerushalayim Ma'aser Sheni Shaloi. So someone had to spend an extended period of time on an annual basis, at least, in Yerushalayim. By Uriah, what does someone see as a visitor in Yerushalayim? Shekulam oiskim b'malacha shemayim. Everybody's doing mitzvahs there. The main focus in Yerushalayim was doing avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Uvavodah haya. So therefore, gam hu mechaven liyira shemayim v'osik b'torah. Being in such an environment where it's all about avodas Hashem and learning Torah, that is a very good influence. And that's where they thought the best place to have a yeshiva is in Yerushalayim, where people would be influenced in many, many more ways than just sitting and learning. Vadayin, misheyesh layav, hiyamayla umelamdoi. Misheyesh layav, lahayoyla. How did you get up to Yerushalayim from wherever you might have been? Weiter, a child would need a father to take them. So there were still children that were disadvantaged. Then they made it to Kana, in every region, there should be moistus of chinuch, public moistus of chinuch. And at what age do they start teaching children Torah? Keven tezayin, keven yudzayin, at 16 or 17. The problem was, if someone is not involved in any type of Jewish education till he's already 16 or 17, at that point he already has an opinion on his own. And therefore, what happened was, if a child didn't like what was going on and his Rebbe was giving him a hard time, he said, you know, I don't need this, I'm out of here. They were old enough to be able to just walk away. So it's Kinu. I'm sorry, Achaba, Yeshua ben Gamla. So now Rabbi Yeshua ben Gamla came on the scene, the Tikein, and he made it to Kana, Sheyuhu Moshivan, Milamde Tinoikos, Bechol Medina, Ubechol Ir Ve'ir. First of all, he said every single city must have public moises of chinuch that are supported by the tzibur, that any child can avail himself of. And then, additionally, we need to start with mechanach children at a much younger age. At 6 or 7, that's already a time to start a child off in chinuch. Let's see Tosfos about when is the right time to start off a child from learning. Zok Rashi. Oh, I'm sorry. I am actually jumping ahead of myself. So Zok to Gemara weiter. Well, Amalei Rav Shmuel Bashilas. I love this Gemara. Not if you hit your Talmud. When you hit your Talmud, loy simchi ella ba'arkasa de misana. What should you hit with? You should hit with arkasa de misana. And if we look at Rashi, Rashi says it means like a shoelace. That doesn't really cause any type of pain. Rashi's Burtsuai shall min the lion. The straps of shoes, a very light type of patch so that he shouldn't get hurt, which is a shaila in to itself about hitting children, but we'll get to in a minute. The kari, the child that's influenced, that learns, great. The lekari, what if a child is not influenced? Let him be a company for his friend. There's a shaila in the Rishonim what this means. Rashi says that tzavsa means don't punish him too much. If he's not holding by learning, back off. But do not throw him out of yeshiva. At least let him be in the environment of yeshiva. The Sofer lost his life. Ultimately, someone that's immersed in such an environment will end up coming around, will be successful. So that's one pshat. This is how Rashi learns. There are other people who learn that tzavsa means if you let the children that aren't interested leave, the children who are there, who are interested, they're going to say, hey, they're probably having so much more fun leaving, and they're going to want to go and join those who left. So therefore, keep them there. Keep them there. So at least the people that are there will want to remain there, and they won't think that there's something more fun out there that these children are doing. Now, Rabbi Radu spoke out that the chatzot that were in the Midbar with Klal Yisrael, every year they got new chatzot. And he said over from somebody, and I don't remember from who, that why did they get new chatzot every year? Because every year we have to reevaluate what is the right approach of how to be Ma'ir Klal Yisrael, how to bring Klal Yisrael in. And what was good last year, a method that worked last year might not necessarily be the best method for this year. And that's the lesson of Chinuch. Just because in those days hitting was good, not necessarily is that the best way to inspire Talmidim today. And a Mechanech has to always know that he can't always think that what they did in the good old days, what worked for us will work for them, is not necessarily true. Every generation requires a different approach to chinuch, and it's important that we're versatile enough, flexible enough to provide for our children what is most appropriate for them at this time. Okay, so Zok Tehillah Gemara Vater. Amalei Ravler Rab Shmuel Bar Shilas at Shis, until the child is 6 years old. Loy sakpil, don't accept him into cheder. That's a little bit too young. Kan ve'elech, but once a child is 6, kabil, take him in. But aftilate ketura and stip him with so much Torah, like when you force an ox to eat so that it should grow big and strong. That's what one should do with the Torah. They should literally stuff the children with Torah. Oh, did I go? Oh, I'm sorry. I believe that I skipped, and now I'm going back. Yeah, so I actually skipped this Gemara by mistake, and then I went to the next of Amar Shmuel Bashilas. So I knew I was looking for this Gemara to learn Tosfos. So Rav told Rav Shmuel Bashilas, "At shis lo sakbil mikan ve'elach kabel v'asvud lakatura." So Tosfos says, "B'botzer mibashish lo sakabel." Don't accept somebody who's less than 6 years old. How could our Gemara say don't take until they're 6? It says in Pirkei Avos at 5 you're supposed to start children off learning Torah. So that's a very healthy child. Like the Gemara said in Ksubas. If someone subjects his son that's younger than 6 to learning Torah, he'll always be sickly, and you'll always have to run after him, dealing with his illnesses, and you'll never be able to resolve them. There was another shot that said, this child will always academically be ahead of his friends. They'll never be able to catch up to him because of his head start that he got in learning. But their value is new. And both things actually happen, Dr. Gemara. He'll be a weakly, sickly child because he started learning too early, but Lamaisa, he'll still be ahead of his friends always in Torah. That was one shot. A weak child because he'll always be sickly because you've put this burden on him at too young age. But a child is very, very strong. He actually can absorb Torah even when he's younger. Okay, and then we had I'm sorry. And then we had V'amalei Ravlam Shmuel Bashilas Kimachos Linuka Loi Simchi Ela Ba'arkas Od Mesana the Kari Law the Kari L'Kari Lavatzavsa L'Chavri. So I just want to stop a moment and share two interesting things with you. I read a story, and I'm sure you've heard similar stories with other Gedolim, but this happened with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal. And he threw a Talmud out of his yeshiva. And someone came to be mishtadel on behalf of this Talmud, don't throw him out. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach told him, I'm really sorry. I've warned this child many times, and we can't have him here anymore. So the Yid asked Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, let me ask you a question. How often do you say Salach Lanu Avinu Ki Chatanu? He said 3 times a day, every day in Shemon Esrei. And how many times you say it in the week? Many more times in the year. So you keep on asking Hashem for a second chance. Why should this child be any different? So immediately, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach took the child back into the yeshiva. Okay, gewaltig. I also read.
You didn't finish the story. It became the Gadol Hador and went out.
That I don't know. Yeah. I thought the story would be that he met up all year, but I don't know. But Yangi Tabsanova sent me an interesting shtickle, beautiful shtickle, and about how a Rebbe, how everybody, you have to know how to build people up, not break them down. And he said over a very fascinating thing. Hevel, the brother of Cain, the son of Adam Arishon, was murdered. What did he do to deserve to be killed? What you don't find, if the Torah mentions that he did an Aveira, that because of that, he was deserving of death. Yes, Cain killed him, but he had to be deserving of death. Why did Hashem allow him to be murdered? So he brings down from the Arizal that the Arizal said, in fact, the Baal Torah doesn't list off something that Hevel did. He didn't die because he did an Aveir. He must have died because of a mitzvah that was expected of him to be done, and he didn't do what he was supposed to. So it's for not doing something. And the hint in the Torah to what that was is right after the story of Hevel. The Torah tells us the Rebbeinu Shalom went over to Cain and said, "Why do you look so sad today? Why do you look so sad today?" So Vais the avla that Hevel did is that he didn't ask Cain after Cain's carbon was rejected, "Why do you look so sad today?" And when someone is in a bad matzav and you see someone that is not happy today, you're mechuyev to go over to him and encourage him and ask him what's bothering you. How can he help you? And Vibal Hevel didn't do that for Cain. He was deserving of death, and that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed Cain to murder him. So that sounds a little scary. So let's always look at the flip side. Let's look at the other side. Someone who does do that. We know Mida Toivas Meruba Midas Pranius. Who did that? Yosy Tzaddik. He was incarcerated for life. He was convicted of rape, and he was convicted. And he was a slave. He was never getting out of jail. And what did he do? He woke up in the morning and saw 2 Geraba Goyim that were in a bad mood. Who cares? He could have walked right by them. But that's not what he did. He went over to the Sarah Mashkin. He went over to the Sarah Oifen. You guys look upset today. What's going on? Maybe I can help you. And through that, he interpreted the dream. and through that he was summoned by Parai, and through that he became the king. So you see that just by being concerned when someone is not looking so happy could have a huge payoff, and not doing that could come with some consequences. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Meisvei, back to our sugya. So right now we made a distinction that Cheder Kinderlich, that's something that no one's allowed to object to. If there's a Rebbe teaching children Torah in your chutzner, and because of that it's a bit noisy, you have no right to complain, because teaching children is a communal responsibility. But other types of high traffic, you are allowed to object to in your chutzner. So basically, for the Gemara, if someone in your chutzner wanted to be a roife, which Rashi tells us is a moil, umin is an umin, someone who's makis dam. The guardi, I believe the guardi is a weaver, or umalamed tenoikis, or if he wants to be a malamed tenoikis, b'nei chutzner ma'akvin alav, they are allowed to stop him. So that's a direct contradiction to our Mishnah. So the Gemara, you know what type of children we're talking about? We're talking about goyish children. So a goy, we don't have any responsibility to educate goyish children, and therefore you couldn't object. And Tashma, another raya which brings out the same point. Shnaim sheyoshim b'chatzer u'bigesh echad ben lasas roife v'omen v'gardi u'malamet tinoikos chaveri ma'akav alov hachanami b'tinoikos da'akav. So this brings up a whole interesting shaila. What exactly are you teaching these children? So look at the Rabbeinu. Excuse me. If we look at the Rabbeinu Gershom, the Rabbeinu Gershom says what this is. So I believe I have it over here. Where is our Toisus? Not on this side, maybe to have this margin of mitigation as well. Oh, there it is. So I have it on the right margin. And he says over here, the second to the last line on the bottom of the Amid. Imroitza Lilmoid Sefer. I have to go back up to the second column. Sefer Refuah, either Sefer Refuah. So you're teaching them secular education. That you don't have a right to do in your chutzner. But the next word is oy mikra or chumash. If you want to teach a guy chumash, yochel akav b'nei chutzner can say, I don't want that type of traffic. But it's mashma that otherwise you're allowed to teach a goy chumash. Is there not an isser to teach a goy Torah? So there are those that bring a raya from Rabbeinu Gershom that the isser to teach a goy Torah is referring to Torah Shabal Peh. It's not referring to Torah Shabiksav because it says Oy Mikra. There are other Rishonim that learn here in the Gemara that it means secular education. And not only does it mean to goyim, it could be even teaching Jewish children, but secular subjects, that's not communal responsibility, and therefore, b'nei chutzner we mark it. But there is a big shaila, can you teach a goy Torah? And it comes up sometimes in communities where there's a Jewish man who might not have Jewish children, and he wants to send his children to Jewish schools. How do you deal with that? You know, Akiva Balter told me a story that his son does mitzvahs, and he encourages people to put on tefillin. So a mother and son once came, and the son sticks his hand out to allow Akiva's son to put tefillin on him. So they put tefillin on this boy, and then after the boy takes his tefillin off, the mother sticks her hands out and says, I also want tefillin. So he looks to his mother and says, Mom, you can't put on tefillin. You're not Jewish. So the shaila is, are you allowed to teach a non-Jew Torah? So there are those who learn that you're allowed to teach them inspirational ideas about the Torah. You can inspire them to do good things, but you can't teach them Torah. Now, those who hold you're allowed to teach them, but not in detail. There's a very big discussion as to under what conditions and what level of Torah is allowed to be taught to a good. But I'll call upon from this little Rebbeinu Gershon, his little word of Oy Mikra, you see that he held that you were allowed to teach a guy Torah Shabbat. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Zok the Heilige Gemara by Meisvei. Toshma, Toshma. Mi sheyesh loy bayis b'chotzer hashut. If someone has a home in a chotzer hashut, hareze lo yaskirenu. So now you have your house, but you're not doing this yourself. You're renting it to somebody. So lo yaskirenu, you're not allowed to rent your house in a chotzer loyla roife to an outside roife, the loyla omen, the loyla grady, the loyla sofer Yehudi, the loyla sofer Armai. Sign out to a Jewish rebbe is what we thought, or a Goyish rebbe. So how is that prohibited? Didn't we say that you're allowed to teach children Torah? It's a communal responsibility. We're not speaking about a rebbe here. We're talking about a principal. A principal is someone who engages masses. He's not teaching Torah himself. As Rashi says, B'Sefer Masa, Rashi says, Melameti Noikos Ha'ir, Umoishiv Malamdin Tachtov. He brings in Malamdim underneath him, V'Humoira Skulam Eichyasu, when he instructs the teachers how to teach, the Yeshem Koel Gadol, that's a much, much bigger infringement. Memela having one Rebbe teaching a class, that will be allowed in the Chutzner. That you can't prevent. But to create a whole school system there, that's something that you do have a right to object. Zog to Gemara, Amarava, Mitakonos Reb Shua ben Gamla ve'elach. Since we have now a takana of Reb Shua ben Gamla, you're not allowed to schlep children from one city to another city to learn. There should be a Moshe Chinuch in every single city, so you don't risk the travel danger or the risk of knocking the children out from tiredness from traveling. You don't schlep them from city to city. But yeah, you do schlep them from one shul to another shul to teach them Torah because that's within the same city. The mifzik nahara, if there's a river that has to be crossed, once again that poses danger. You don't have to cross the river to teach your child Torah. The ika titura, but if there's a nice, safe, wide, and sturdy bridge, then mamtina the ika gamo. But if there's just a little board that you have to balance yourself over, which is not that safe, le mamtinon, you don't. The Omarov, sach mikri dardki. How many children does there need to be to mandate that the community pay for a rebbe? Esrin v'chamisha. So you see, in the Gemara's time, the Gemara is determining what class size is. The proper class size is 25 children. Esrin v'chamisha yenuki. If you have 50 students, then you need to have a second class. What happens if you don't have 50, but you have a lot more than 25? What do you do there? The ikar boy, if there's 40, you know what you do? You have to hire an assistant to the Rebbe, umasayin lay, and they help him. Umasayin lay mimasa. And this way they can help him. And Rashi umasayin lay mimasa means that extra expense to pay for the assistant also comes from the community. Now, the question would be, Tosfos mentions, is what do you mean? What do you mean you're taking a child from city to city? If there's less than 25, there is no chiyuv to hire anybody. And if they have 25, they have to hire somebody. So why would you ever need to schlep a child from one city to the next? So if you look at the second to the bottom Tosfos, there were 25 children, which means the city is now mandated to provide schooling. Fact Tosfos, I don't understand. Even if they bring a whole class of 25 to the next city, that's going to mandate the hiring of another teacher. So let them just hire that teacher where they are. Given the why schlep them to a different city? Keep them in the city that they're in and hire a malamed for them there. What if there were two malamdim in that city? There they already have two malamdim. There's room in those classes. They have good malamdim there, so there they would be able to add those children to those classes. The next place is Sach Miki Darki Chafe Yanuki. Class size is 25. If they don't have 25 students, then you wouldn't be able to force it. Okay, Dr. Gemara weiter. We're going to get to the politics of schooling. Dr. Gemara. V'amarava, Haimek Yanuki, the Garis, V'ikachrina, the Garis Tvemine. What if you have one Rebbe who teaches well, but there's another Rebbe who teaches even more, he covers even more ground? Loy misalkinu. You don't excuse, you don't dismiss the Rebbe who didn't teach as much to be able to hire another Rebbe who teaches more. You know why? Dilma Ossi, Le'isra Shuli. Rashi says if you reject or dismiss one Rebbe and hire this other Rebbe, it's going to go to the second Rebbe's head. And he's going to think, I'm a knacker, and no one's ever going to get rid of me because I'm such a great teacher. And because of that, it'll actually reduce his level of working for his Talmidim, and it's going to mess things up. Keep him. You know why you should do that? Because by dismissing somebody who's not as good a teacher and hiring a better teacher, that's going to create a good competition to make sure that everybody's at their A game. It'll only enhance everybody's Torah if teachers know that if they're not at the top of their game, they can be dismissed.
So you can't be dismissed because he's cheaper, because he's undercutting the competition. So he's not as good a Rebbe, or he's just as good, but I can get him. He's right out of Koil, so I can get him for less.
It doesn't. It sounds like there was a typical amount that a Rebbe was paid, but clearly you have to hire the best Rebbe, right? Like clearly you sure have to hire the best Rebbe. Here to Shiloh, you don't want to fire a schwacher Rebbe to get a better Rebbe.
Yeah, but so it doesn't say the criteria is how much it costs, but location does.
It didn't bring cost into it. So I guess there was a standard rate that Rebbeim got paid, and therefore it didn't make it. There was maybe not the financial incentive. So, but I don't know. That's a good argument.
The union wouldn't allow you to fire that Rebbe.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking there's only one school in Toronto that has a union for Rebbeim, and that is Eitz Chaim. Clearly, from this Gemara, you see unionization is not allowed for Rebbeim. As an essential service, they're not allowed for Rebbeim because you see we want to keep them on their A game. So unions actually discourage A games. Unions encourage mediocrity. So
some of my kids suffered from that union. They wouldn't let go a teacher who was
not worthy,
who was burnt out.
So Yosy, about 20 years ago, when Guda was thinking of having a play group downstairs, so I spoke then to Mrs. Stein, and she was working at Eitz Chaim, and I offered her to run her own place here, and she was considering it. So I got a call from Aaron Grubner, and he said, "Lo yasa ken bimkomenu." There's an understanding within the schools that we don't poach each other's teachers to try to woo them away from one school to another. That's what he said.
They also actually have this policy with students as well. It's very difficult to change schools here because there's this unspoken policy that they don't. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. V'yamarava, Hani Trey Makri Dardiki. There were two teachers. Chad Garish V'loidai. One covered a lot of ground, but he wasn't on top of the Talmidim to make sure that they have all their T's crossed and their I's dotted. So there was a lot of mistakes. V'chad Daik V'loigarish. One, they knew everything perfectly, but they barely got out of Daf Beis. So one was a Litzvish yeshiva that they covered very few blatter, but it was Be'in, and the other yeshiva, the Chassidish yeshiva, they learned 30 blad in this man, 50 blad in this man, but they didn't have the same clarity. So the halach is Meisfina Nahu de Garish for Ladai. It's better to learn a blatter. You know why? The mistakes over time, they'll get it right. First, cover a lot of ground. Rav Divim and Adam are the opposite. You know why? Because if a child learns with his initial mistakes, Shabeshta Kivan to all. Once it's in his memory, the gears of the Yankasa, it's going to be very hard to get it corrected. A very famous Balkari once said, it's very easy for me to prepare any parsha. The hardest parsha for me to learn without any mistakes is my bar mitzvah parsha, because I always still remember it the way I originally said it, but now I would have said it better. It's already in my memory with certain mistakes that I had. Where do you see this? Where do you see that mistakes remain? T'chsiv, kisheishes chadashim miyashav sham Yoav, v'chol Yisrael, Yoav and Klaisol sat there at Hichris kol zachar be'edai. So Yoav wiped out all of the males of Edai, but not the females. He also the Kamei to David. When they finally finished the war and Yoav came back to report to David, Amar Lei, David HaMelech asked him, and let's turn on to Amid Beis. My time of Adatach, why didn't you kill the Nekevos? Amar Lei, Yoav said, what do you mean? Dichsiv Timche es Zochar Amalek. I learned in Cheder that you have to wipe out the males of Amalek, but not the females. Amar Lei, so David HaMelech told him, what? Amaratzis, V'anan Zecher Karinan, or Zecher Karinan. We meant the whole memory of them. You got to wipe out men and women. Amar Lei, really? Anna Zocher Akrisan. I always learned in Cheder that I mean Zocher. So also Shaila the Rabbi, they went to ask the Rebbe of Yoav, how did you teach these children? Amalei Heich Akrisan. How did you teach the children? Amalei Avada, I said Zecher. But he was Garish, but it was Veloi Diet. He didn't make sure that he might have covered a lot of ground. But he didn't make sure that his Talmidim had clarity in what the word meant, and what a difference there is between Zecher and Zocher. Shakal Safsira, he took a strap. Lamikla, Yoav wanted to kill his Rebbe for causing him to make such a horrific mistake. Amalei, the Rebbe said, I don't understand. Am I? Amalei, the Chsiv, it says in the Pasuk, Or Isa, Melechas Hashem Ramiyah. Cursed is one who takes the Rebbeinu Shalom's Malacha and makes tricks with it. In other words, allows it to be distorted. And by you not being careful to make sure that I, as your Talmud, should have clarity in the fact that it's Zecher and not Zochar, you're Ur. Zog to Gemara, Amalei, the Rebbe said, okay, Shafkei lahu gavra the lake and bar. So it says Ur, but who said you have to kill me? Why can't you just settle for me suffering the Ur? Amalei, it says, V'Ur, meineach harbe midam. So the question is, did he kill his Rebbe? Did Yoav ended up killing his Rebbe? Ikadamri Kotli. There are those who say that he killed his Rebbe. Ikadamri loy Kotli. But at the end of the day, you see what a difference it makes to make sure that the child is daik, because look what a huge impact it can have so much later in life. That Shabeshta didn't work its way out. That Shabeshta remained forever, the years to the Yankasa with Yoav. Amalei. Mikri, Yenuke, people who teach children, so the communal Rebbeim of the city, Shasla, the communal people who are the sharecroppers of the city, Havcha, the Shachtim of the city, the Umna, the Mekize Dam of the city, the Sefer Masa, and the Sefer of the city, Kulon kemusrin v'oimdim ninu. They are all considered pre-warned. In other words, you don't give them 3 strikes until you fire them. If they make mistakes, you could fire them right away. They're considered pre-warned. You can fire them with cause if they make 1 mistake. Why? Because they are in very critical roles. If there's going to be a mistake that's going to be very hard to correct, he's got to be on his A game no matter what, every single time, and 1 strike and you're out. Now, when it comes to a child, what's the difference if they make a mistake? You can correct it, Tosfos asks. So Tosfos says, you know what? You know why you lost out? Because the time in which you took to teach the child improperly, you'll never be able to make up for that time. Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. Hi bar mavu. Someone lives in your movi, so now he's not in your chotzer. You only share with him a movi. The uki rechaya. He set up a rechaim, so he's in the business of doing milling. The also bar mavu chavri, and another bar mavu came. The kamuki gabe, and he decides that he's now setting up his own shop competition. Dina hudaloch is the ma'akevi luya. I can tell him you can't infringe on my business. The amarle kapasaktale lechayusi. You're impacting my income, and you could stop him from doing that. Let's see Rashi. There is no Rashi over here. So Frag the Gemara as follows. So it's Rav Huna's halacha. Rav Huna says that you could stop somebody from coming in and infringing on your business and creating a competition. Okay. Zok to Gemara weiter. Let's see if we could bring a right to Rav Huna that you could stop someone from coming in and competing with you. Brisa says, Marchikin mitzudas hadag min hadag kamole ritas hadag. If I'm a fisherman and I set up my nets, I've set up my bait and my nets in this area, if anybody wants to come fish in the area, they have to be so far away, as far as a fish would swim, that's how far away they have to set up their nets. They can't come close to me. The Kama, Amarava Baravuna, at Parsa, they would have to be a full Parsa away from me where I have my fishing area set up. So you see clearly this same concept that Rav Huna told us that I'm allowed to stop somebody from infringing on my business. Zok Gemara, you don't have a raya from the case of the fish. Shiny dogim, the Yahavi Siira. I've been investing in this area, putting out bait every day. So the fish of this whole region know that this is the place to come get a snack, and therefore I'll be able to catch them easily. However, you didn't do that, so it's not fair that you should be able to infringe on the investment that I made. And Rashi says very clearly, Hilcha, Kivan Shehikr, Zeh, Chayroi, V'nason Mezoinos, V'soich Malay Ritzasoi, since I put bait in this area, Batuchu Shil Kedenu. He's sure that he's going to catch it. So Rashi is telling us it's not about because I invested, why should you benefit from it? Do we consider the fish there are mine already? So Rashi says, Batuchu Shil Kedenu, the Havale command motali a day. We look at it like the fish, even though they're not caught, they're as if that fisherman had caught them already, and they belong to that fisherman. If you now plant your net near my zone, you're literally taking fish that are already mine. But in the case of Rav Huna, where someone wants to open up a mill near your mill, whoever comes, whichever customers go to you. I didn't put out bait attract customers, so therefore you could come as well, and whoever customer decides they want to go to you is fine, whoever wants to go to me is fine. So you don't have a raya from fish to Rav Huna, because by fish we look at it like the first person who put out bait, those fish already are his. Zog to Gemara weiter.
Sounds to me, Yosy, like putting something in the good of fridge.
I'm not able to hear you.
Belongs to somebody else, right?
You're breaking up. I'm not sure. Is it just me? Gary, can you
Okay.
shake your head? Can you hear Akiva? No,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
can
hear.
hear you.
Now I can hear you again.
Yeah, so I remember a Purim Rav once said that if you put something in the fridge, it's as if it belongs already to somebody else.
Gewaltig. Gewaltig. That's right. So Zok the Gemara weiter. Amler Ravun Rav Lemer Rav Huna Damak Rav Yuda. It seems like Rav Huna's halacha about protecting one's turf is similar to what Rav Yuda said. The Tanan Rav Yuda Aimer Lo Yechalek Heveni Kloyos Vegoyz and Latinaikos. You're not allowed to give out goodies to children because they're going to schlep their mother to go to your store because it makes them come to make the children want to come to your store. The Chum allow it. So it seems like this protected turf applies, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to infringe on someone's turf by putting out goodies and causing customers to come to you from somebody else. That's not allowed. That's similar to Rabbi Yehuda's concept. So not at all. I feel telling Rabbanan, even the Rabbanan in the world that you are allowed to put out goodies for children to come. That's not called infringing. Adkan. I'm giving out this candy. You give out a different kind of candy. You give out almonds, I'm going to give out nuts. You can do the same marketing that I can do. That's not called me infringing on you. But opening up a mill right next to mine, that might be considered infringement. So I feel you're sitting up right in my turf, you're hurting my income. You're allowed to open up a similar store to someone right beside his store. Bava was allowed to open up a mikveh next door to that good. Nobody can complain. I have my business, you have your business. Whoever wants to patronize your store, fine. Whoever wants to patronize my store is fine. But I'll call upon him that is Shver and Huna, who says that no, I could prevent you from setting up shop next door to me. This is a fact of Machlokas. Tanoim, Tanya Kaifin B'nei Mevuyos, Zeh, Shaloy B'nei. We can force others that you shouldn't set up like Chayit, tailor shop, like Borsigi or a tanner, V'lei Melam B'Tanoikas. V'loy Echad Mibnei Bali Umniyos. I can stop a foreign guy from coming in. So if I'm in a movie, I can stop somebody from coming from a different movie and setting up shop here to compete with me. But if it's somebody else who lives in the same movie and he happens to want to open up a similar shop, and the kefei that I can't stop. So Rav Huna would be consistent with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that even someone in the same movie, I can stop him from opening up a similar business. Amar Rav Huna b'rei Rabbi Yeshua, pshitali, it's pasha to me. Bar matzah, achriti motimat. If I'm in one city and I have a business here, and someone from another city wants to come and open up a branch in my city, that I could stop. You're a foreigner. But if he has property here and he pays property tax here, he's also considered a toshav of this city, and therefore loy motzima. What about bar mavua? A bar mavua. So we use that halacha from one city to another city. But what about from one mavi in a city to another mavi in a city? A bar mavua de nafshe loy motzima. If he lives in that mavi, I cannot stop. Bar mavua, a bar mavua. What about somebody from a different mavi but in the same city? Can he open up a store in my mavi? My Dr. take it. When it comes to Rebbeim, there for sure you could never stop somebody from opening up in the city. Rashi says why? We want competition, even if it's foreign competition. We want competition when it comes to chinuch. We want teachers to be afraid of each other so that they should all keep their A game. The Mamar Kinasayvrim Tarbe Chachma. The Mamar turning on to Daf Chav Beis Amud Aleph. Kina soifrim tarbechach. When there's competition, then every teacher will hone their craft to provide the best possible education. Okay, we're running a little late, so we'll stop here. I want to wish Olam to have an awesome, wonderful gebench today.
Yeah, so you're going to be back tomorrow?
I'm driving through the night tonight. If the Olam shows up halfway on time to Sheva Bracha so that I can be done by 9, I'll make it back for the morning. But if the Olam schleps, then I'm going to end up being I'll leave. Once you leave after 9 p.m., then I hit traffic when I cross the border. And then I'll have to give shir on the QEW. So either I'll be there or I'll be saying shir on the QEW.
All right. Have a safe trip.
Thank you so much.